Well, guys, I guess this is something that we all should have seen coming. I think this is something that we all should have understood. 2016 Suicide Squad by David Ayer came out, and it wasn't the movie that he envisioned, that he wrote, that he shot. It was manipulated, it was re edited, it was mangled by the studio and released, much like 2017's Justice League, which eventually we saw the Snyder Cut released in 2021. There was a movement that people wanted to see the Ayer cut of Suicide Squad, and for a number of years, people thought that we may actually get to see it. David Ayer had been very hopeful for quite some time that it could happen, and very recently was stating that it was a good possibility that it could come out. This coming from comicbook.com. Say, despite teasing the director's cut of 2016 Suicide Squad, filmmaker David Ayer now says he's done talking about the film. In a series of posts on X, formerly Twitter, David Ayer started it all with a firm clarification on his position of Suicide Squad's director's cut, noting, "I'm done with DC." When asked once again, if this means he really wasn't going to fight for the release of his version of Suicide Squad, he replied, "Nope, done and done. Very sad. You'll be fine after a good cry. I feel healthier. It's a wound that needs to heal." So the most interesting fact is some of these tweets have since been deleted from his X account since he posted them, which is very interesting. You can't find them. Luckily, I mean, I've got some screenshots, or I have a screenshot of one of them, which you can see here. And, somebody goes, "What's the change of mind? Was it because of James Gunn and the new DC regime?" He goes, "Nothing about this situation feels good. Studio has no interest in releasing it. It's time to run and not look back." And this kind of started a whole shindig of the Snyder Bros, which are big supporters of releasing the Ayer cut, kind of jumping on this, "See, James Gunn bad, James Gunn bad." And it just got out of hand. It really did. You can see this person, Joe Costello, over on X. "Well, I'm glad David finally understood that James Gunn was not going to do anything for his cut. Something obviously happened, and that's why he's completely worn out with the situation. I hope he understands that being nice is not the solution sometimes. He has to play their game." Let's get something straight here, okay? James Gunn owes nothing to David Ayer. James Gunn owes nothing to anything to anybody from the DCEU at this point in time. The Ayer cut, 2016's The Suicide Squad, came out in 2016 under a completely different regime, three regimes ago. That was completely different people. That wasn't even AT&T. That was an old regime of people. Now, James Gunn and Peter Safran are focusing on the DCU. Even David Ayer himself has stated and has mentioned that James Gunn needs to focus on establishing and building the DCU before he could even consider and should consider releasing the Ayer cut. But why all of a sudden the change of heart? Why all of a sudden is he saying, it's done, it's over with, we're not getting it? Well, my guess is that James Gunn is doing just as David Ayer was once saying. James Gunn, DC Studios, Peter Safran are doing exactly what they should be doing. Focusing on the future. Focusing on the DCU. The DCEU, all of those movies are in the past. It's a failed universe. It's unfortunate. There's some great things. Man of Steel came out of it. Henry Cavill Superman. Some great things came out of it. But here we sit in 2024, and people are still, "We want a movie from 2016. And you're asking people who were not involved in any way, shape, or form to release this film. And then you're blaming them for not releasing it. To me, that's ridiculous. It's time to move forward. They need to focus solely on the DCU at this point. Aquaman closed out the DCEU. It's time to move forward. It's time to look to the future. Onward and upwards, we say. That is what we all, not just Gunn and Safran, we all should be looking forward. Absolutely, we can hope that one day they release the Ayer cut. We see it all the time, years down the line. We see a director's cut of a movie come out. It happens all the time. But there's a big difference. People will point to what happened with the Snyder cut. I'm not going to get into it, but that is a huge scenario. That is different than anything that we've ever seen before. That is the exception to the rule. That is not the rule of Hollywood. That is the exception. And that's not one that we as fans should be sitting here saying and banking on. Look, you did it for Snyder, you should do it for Ayer. You know, it's not James Gunn's fault that what happened to David Ayer in 2016. It's not Peter Safran's fault. It's not David Zaslav's fault. Your hatred, your anger should not be towards them. It's not on them to release this. It's not on them to go back and fix a mistake from 2016. I said this about the Snyderverse before. Even with Jason Kilar and Walter Hamada, it's not on them to fix the mistakes of the past regime. It's not on them. They have a job to do. They have a universe, a studio that they must run and look to the future and not to the past. That is how it works. And I know you all want to sit there and say, well, if they want to have a successful future, they need to get in the goodwill of the audience today. Releasing the Ayer cut isn't going to do that. It's not. Even restoring the Snyderverse isn't going to do that. They need to focus on the future. They need to establish, they need to make sure that the audience at large understands that there is a new universe being created. I absolutely agree that 2024 could have been a great year to release the Ayer cut. Why? Because there's no big DCU project coming out. But I understand why they're not doing it. It is a great time. It's a year of nothing. Creature Commandos is going to come out. But besides that, there's a bunch of nothing coming out. It's going to cleanse the palate. It's a palate cleanser of sorts for the audience. So come 2025, when Superman Legacy is released, you'll have nearly 2 years, a year and a half, 18 months or more, where fans will have forgotten about the old DCEU. And they'll be ready and raring to go with the new DCU. And that makes sense. Not just from a brand perspective, but financially. From a studio, from Hollywood. It makes sense. I get that there's passionate fans out there. But right now, it doesn't make sense to release the Ayer cut. In 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, maybe it makes sense to release it. Maybe they do release it. Maybe we never see it. But again, that's not on James Gunn. That's not on Peter Safran. That's not on David Zaslav. That's not on the next regime, if there is a next regime that owns Warner Brothers. If we never see David Ayer's true cut of the Suicide Squad, or of Suicide Squad, that will always fall on the regime that was in charge in 2016. No one else. And the sooner you get that into your brain, the sooner you'll be able to maybe understand and reconcile it within yourself. You know, the one thing I will say is, the more you continue to push this toxic behavior, like this Joe Costello says, sometimes, obviously, I hope you understand that being nice is not the solution sometimes. He has to play their game. What is their game? They're not being mean. They're not being evil. James Gunn is doing his job as he should be doing. And that is how it needs to be played. By being toxic, by the fans constantly hounding James Gunn and Peter Safran and David Zaslav. By being toxic, none of you deserve this. You're hurting David Ayer more than you're helping him by acting the way you are. Because no studio is going to want to give fans who act like that anything. I believe that is a huge reason why they never truly considered continuing the Snyderverse, because of the way you fans have acted for the last 3 years. But let me know your thoughts. I want to know what you think of all of this. Maybe we do get it at some point, maybe we don't. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd like to hear. Make sure you hit that like button, hit subscribe. With all that said, I guess I'll catch you all later.